How many of you know your wife has a tone of voice where you say, it's coming? Yeah, come on, guys. Come on, guys. It's coming. And like when she's got that tone of voice, there's just this knot that just kind of, I'm going to catch it now. It's just, you know, and then you got to figure out, do I put on my Rocky suit and demand, you know, submit, or do I lay my life down? I can tell you which one's preferable. Because the one that Jesus asks of me is a lot tougher. Adrian. But it's not until you're in your 20s that you discover how often you get hung by your tongue. And the truth is that all of us need to realize that the tongue, James says, and we looked at it already, the tongue sets the course of our life. It's the rudder of this ship. And if we can be mature enough to bridle our life, it will be because of the words of our mouth and the meditations of our heart are acceptable in the sight of the Lord. And so we're always speaking, whether we're conscious of it or not, in the presence of the Lord and giver of life. Talk about someone who could bridle his tongue. Jesus said, the words I speak are spirit and life. You with me? So when we look at the course of our life and we look at our journey, more often than not, we mark our life by the significant conversations or decrees we've made that have changed or altered the direction of our life. When you hear the words, I do, coming from the one you are making a life commitment to, you are altering the course of your life. So, here's a woman who, oh, and by the way, let's just remind ourselves, Proverbs 18:21, which we always misquote on purpose. I think it's a Freudian slip. If you were to ask the average person, what does Proverbs 18:21 say? They're going to say life and death are in the power of the tongue. And they think they're correct. But that's not what it says. It doesn't say life and death. It says death and life. And there's a reason it says death and life, because Solomon understood that the first tendency we have is negativity, not positivity. Now, why is that important? Because if you are going to begin to embrace what it is to see what the Father wants to do in your life and decree what the Father wants to do in your life, you've got to give yourself a break and realize that even though you see it, the first thing you're going to say, or even if you say it once, the negative stuff is going to come out, because since Adam, you've been, even though you're being restored in Christ, the Adam factor is still inside you, and you have a tendency first to speak death. Which is why if you take the confession message and demand that every word that comes out of your mouth be perfect, otherwise you're not going to get healed, that's not grace. That's legalism. That's Pharisaism. That's the law. That's the law of Moses. It's not the grace of Jesus. Are you listening? So you got to give yourself some room to realize that you're going to take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. But with every 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, you made 1 step forward. Let me just say that again. For every 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, you made 1 step forward. And because your first tendency is to speak death, it means your first tendency is to think death. And so your first tendency is, I didn't do much. And what you've got to do is replace that with, look at how much I accomplished. All right, you made 3 steps forward, bless God, I thought I was here, but then wham, I got hit and I'm back. I got whacked in the head and I'm back at step 1. But look, I am 1 step further from where I was. Savor those moments. Even when you think you've blown it, realize to take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, you fell in the direction of the promise. Say this to somebody. Say, because of grace and faith, You fall forward, not backward. And how many times do you have to fall till you get it? The righteous fall 7 times. And 7 is not a literal number. It's a metaphor for the perfecting process. We hate process because we want it to all be right. Hear me, okay? When we talk about changing your conversation and changing the course of your life, and that the culture of Jesus is a miracle culture, it's not going to happen like that, okay? Now, Jesus can turn water into wine in a second. And he extracts 7 years of a process of watering a field of grapes that takes 7 years to get a 100-fold return on very fine wine. He can do in a moment, but I promise you that's not the way your life is going to play out. Doesn't mean you're not going to have miracles, doesn't mean you're not going to have supernatural manifestations, but it does mean you have to understand that if Solomon is telling you death and life are in the power or the hand, that word power is hand, yod. Death and life are in the hand of the tongue. So if this is my tongue, and this is the reality I want to structure, I get to move it in the spirit, in the invisible, based on where my hand goes. Mani, the hand, manipulate in a positive way means to the movement of the hand. This is my hand that navigates the way from the invisible to the visible so that I can structure reality and create worlds with my words. So if I'm building a world to live in, you got to understand construction takes time. If you were to go to find a plot of land, a 40 by 100 piece of land here in Orlando to build a house, I promise you that before you could even put a shovel in the ground, the architect would have to get building permits and an approval for his plans or her plans. And even at the best, you're looking at 18 months before you're going to move in. Now, if they can get you in 7 days, you better go look for another builder. Wise men build their houses on rocks, and not, you know. And then this is hurricane country, so you don't, if they tell you we can have it up in 7 days, say, thank you. But we that's why James, you know, James, who says that we've got to realize that the tongue is set on fire by hell. Well, if hell is the realm of death and the realm of darkness, then we've got to understand that all the evil that goes on in the dark, we have a responsibility to recognize that that stuff is stuff I want to steer away from. And the way I steer away from it is by my conversation. And my conversation affects my body. James says if you can bridle your tongue, you can bridle your whole body. And I shared with you that there is now major medical research in neuroscience that negativity is our first tendency in speech. And that, with that, even the word no produces stress hormones immediately, even if you only hear it for a split second in the brain and in the body. And so, now Dr. Barbara Lawson or Fredrickson, I can't remember, famous clinical psychologist, and I really, having gotten a degree in it, I really should remember which one it is, but she said these things in her studies. She has proven that for every 3 statements that are negatively charged, in order for the body to come back to balance, there has to be 5 positive statements made. So remember I said 3 steps forward, 2 steps back? The righteous falls 7 times. Okay, so everybody say process. So 7 is we say, well, 7 is the perfect number. All the numbers are perfect. Okay? 7 is the number, if we want to get technical, that is combined with 4 and 3. 4 is the number for the earth. 3 is the number for heaven. I wonder why 3 is the number for heaven. Well, maybe because God is 1 and God is 3. 4 is the number for earth, 3 is the number for heaven, and when you have 7, you have the perfect alignment and coming together between heaven and earth. You've got an integration. So 7 represents the perfecting of a process so that all things visible correspond to all things invisible. Thy will be done on earth, in this earthen vessel, as it is in heaven. Everybody with me so far? Okay, so is it okay that we're teaching this morning? You know, I mean, I just, in case those of you forgot, I can preach. I really can preach, but I really want to see you changed, and I don't need to hear myself preach. And it's not like I don't enjoy preaching, but I just really think we are in a season of harvest. We're in a season of growth and development, and I want us to seize this moment for everything it has so that we can get the most out of it. I want you to get the biggest yield on your investment of faith. And so preaching is for inspiration, but teaching is for transformation. So you got to decide, do I want to get a feel-good for 30 minutes, or do I want to have something that's going to bring me into the next 6 to 12 months of my life and lay a foundation for where I'm going for the next chapter of my journey? How many of you would rather have transformation? All right. So there's a process that goes on, and 7 represents the perfecting of a process. So the righteous falls 7 times, watch this, but the Lord raises him up. That's resurrection, and it's the Old Testament word for resurrection. So in the process, you know, now all of it is grace, and yet there's a response on your part and my part called the obedience of faith. So I've got to obey in faith, but what I don't realize is that when I see the promise and I start going after it, it stirs up stuff in me that I didn't know was there. How many of you are willing to admit that there's still a little bit of negative left inside you? How many of you, while you would prefer to change the Bible to life and death are in the power of the tongue, your experience tells you it's the other way around and Solomon got it right? Let's review what Solomon said, all right? Death and life are in the power of the tongue, or in the hand of the tongue. So that doesn't exclude anybody, because all of us in Adam are included. So even doctors can be negative. All right, just checking to make sure we're on the same planet. So when it says, and I can't even imagine, Doc, I can't even imagine what it would be like in Jesus' day, whatever the doctors understood about medicine, and there were some major insights they had about the body. I think sometimes we need to go back instead of go forward. But she suffered much at the hands of many physicians, and had not grown better, but had grown worse, and spent all she had. So she was losing her life, and if she suffered much at the hands of physicians, John's not beating up, Luke's not beating up, Mark's not beating up on the doctor. What he's saying is that whatever they tried didn't work, and only exacerbated the problem. There is something called iatrogenic illness. The word healing in the scripture, one of the words for healing is iatro in the Greek, I-A-T-R-O. And if you were to look at the English word iatrogenic illness is an illness that you develop as a result of being treated for something else. And the thing you develop is worse than the thing you have. How many of you have heard of people checking into a hospital to get healed and they end up dying there of something else? Sure. Okay, iatrogenic illness. So there's a reality. Even, do you understand that doctors are licensed to practice, they're not licensed to heal? Why? Because none of us have that miracle working power in and of ourselves. The best we can do is evaluate and diagnose. In any discipline, we evaluate, we diagnose, we make recommendations, but every single person is different. Which is why you can't have a cookie cutter formula for how you're going to be successful in life. You can have principles that you all apply, but because you are unique and because of the unique factors of your affections, your emotions, your outlook, your personality, there's not going to be a cookie cutter. Well, if it worked for her, it's going to work for me. If I can do just what he did, it's going to happen for me. No, it's not, because you're not them. And that's the danger of reducing everything down to a formula. That's not grace. Grace is an expression of the empowering presence of God that is as diverse as His creation. Because grace for you is going to manifest itself as how He empowers you to be the best you He made you to be. What works for you may not work for somebody else. Don't sell your shtick to somebody else. Give them the principles, but leave out your own idea that it's, if you do it my way, it'll work. You're not that smart. And don't think you're that adequate, because the moment you think you're that adequate, Jesus won't talk to you. Because Jesus is attracted to our profound sense of inadequacy. Do I need to say that again? Paul says, not that we are adequate in ourselves, but our adequacy comes from God. But here's how Jesus handles people that think they're adequate. You know, he's got a ragtag bunch of fishermen, he's got a zealot, he's got a Pharisee. I mean, he's got a zealot, he's got a scribe. These guys are going to kill each other. He's got fishermen that use all sorts of words that we can't say in the Bible. He's got two guys that need anger management. They studied under Adam Sandler and Burt Reynolds, and they both need anger management. He calls them the sons of thunder. And these are his disciples. And here comes a Pharisee, one of the scholars of the day, that can intimidate the snot out of anybody that thinks they know the Bible. His name is Nicodemus, crusher of the people. He's a WWE. The crusher of the people. Nicodemus, the crusher of the people. John's trying to tell us something. And he walks up to Jesus and says, Rabbi. Now listen. The Pharisees gave John the Baptist a hard time. Imagine one of the Pharisees calling you a rabbi. That should make front page news. Jesus is popular with the Pharisees. Rabbi, we know you are a teacher sent from God, because no one can do the signs you do except God is with him. And Jesus, instead of saying, welcome to the club, says, we are so far apart from each other, because unless you're born from above, you can't even see the kingdom. Nicodemus, I need you to understand, you're so adequate in your scholarship that you have no need for me. And if you're going to relate to me, you got to scrap all the crap. Because your adequacy disqualifies you for relationship with me. See, okay, so why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because you and I have a proclivity. Second time in 2 weeks. Go get a dictionary and look it up. It'll enlarge your authority, and you can drop it on somebody at Starbucks. You can say, what would you like? I have a proclivity for caramel macchiato with a little bit of extra vanilla. There's a Pharisee inside you. There's a self-righteous Pharisee inside all of us that wants to think we always get it right. And that's why we need process, because life smacks us in the face and shows us, even at our best, we're taking 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, because he's the one that's perfecting us, and he's going to keep us in grace and not in self-effort. So here's a woman that basically, what the doctors did was the best they could, and basically what that is that because everyone's unique, and I don't want you to hear this, they experimented on her in order to help her, but everything they tried didn't work and made her worse. And she spent all she had, and her issue was blood. Essentially, her issue was life. She kept losing her life in the places where she expected to find her life. I just wonder how many times in your journey, at orientations in between life chapters, or transitioning into a new life chapter, or facing challenges you never expected, or 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, you've spent all your life to get better or beyond where you are, only to discover that the farther you tried to press into it, the less you attained, and it kept evading your grasp, and you kept losing your life, losing your motivation, losing your want to, losing your sense of, I'm going to get there. How many of you know what it's like to see joy get killed? Motivation get killed. Happiness take a taxi. Okay. The question becomes not whether or not it's going to happen, but what are you going to do when it happens? What are you going to do when you hit those seasons where you're saying, but God, I know you've promised me a breakthrough. I want the breakthrough. What do I do? Because I keep, instead of having a breakthrough, when I get to that break point where I think I'm going to have the breakthrough, I have a breakdown. I'm simply wanting you to be aware that you have to learn what this lady learned in the presence of losing her life in whatever area you feel like you're losing your life in. I know you all look so pretty and perfect today, but I promise that there's probably areas inside you that you're scared to death to tell anybody are there. And there was silence in Orlando for the space of a half an hour. But when she heard about Jesus, something opened up inside her. And she said, if I just touch the fringe, the wing, the hem of his garment. This is Messiah. This is the one who's the bridge between heaven and earth. This is the one who, we are told in Hebrews, is the veil that will be torn open so that there can be access to heaven. She began to tell herself, if I just touch the hem of his garment. And something happens inside her. It wasn't that the confession brought the healing. The confession came from a deep place in her heart where she believed that Jesus really was able to do what Messiah could do. Beloved, I am persuaded that this series of messages is going to alter your life in significant and profound ways. I invite you to help me take the gospel around the world by sowing a love gift into our ministry right now. I invite you to call that number on the screen and sow your best love gift, $30, $60 or more. For every one of you that will sow a love gift right now of $30, I'm going to put in your hands your choice, CD or DVD, this brand new series, Change Your Conversation, Change Your Course. It will become part of a powerful library of faith and encouragement for you to refer to for years to come. For those of you that will call right now and sow a love gift of $60 or more, you're also going to get a very powerful brand new series, Everything Shifts in Favor of Those Who Receive. I'm going to show you in that series the context of giving and receiving in terms of anointings, the word of the Lord, the prophet's reward. It will bless you. And for those of you that will sow a love gift as you call right now, call that number on the screen of $90 or more, I'm also going to include on top of all that a powerful series from our archives, The Strategy of Faith. 6 messages that will change the way you operate in faith. Call that number right now. Sow your best love gift, $30, $60, or $90, and let me say thank you by putting these powerful tools in your hands for transformation in Christ. Call now.
The Bible proclaims in the book of James that just like a small rudder directs a big ship, so does our tongue, as a small member, give guidance to our souls. In his brand new series, Change Your Conversation, Change Your Course, Dr. Mark Chironna shows you the vital importance of choosing your words wisely.
Any encounter you have with Jesus will ultimately reflect and be reflected by what comes out of your mouth.
You'll also discover the positive and negative effects of the power of the tongue.
Every negatively energized word has a price tag.
Change Your Conversation, Change Your Course is available on 4 CDs or DVDs for your love gift of $30 or more. To order this life-transforming series of faith and encouragement, call toll-free, write to Mark Chironna, or visit markchironna.com. In addition, for your love gift of $60 or more, you'll also receive this powerful 4-message series, Everything Shifts in Favor of the Receiver, on your choice of CD or DVD. And for your love gift of $90 or more, sown into the fertile soil of Mark Chironna Ministries, along with these two, you'll receive his classic series, The Strategy of Faith, on 6 CDs or DVDs. 14 messages in all, as Mark Chironna's way of saying thank you for your support. Order today.